Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for my Season 1 overall review and rating of the One Piece live action. And I must admit, I did not expect that I would like this series as much as I did. Yes, given that there are small pros and cons throughout this series, there were lots of things that I enjoyed, including the backstories around the characters, to what they're doing in present day, or within the story, of course, as well as seeing how Luffy ends up getting these additional characters to join his crew. Starting off with just having a look at, say, the previous reviews and rating. For the first one, just a bit of a refresher as to what I gave each episode. So, for the first episode, just in relation to the story rating, I gave a 7.5 out of 10. Moving into the second episode, I gave a 7 out of 10, as I felt it dropped a little bit within the story, and also played a part in relation to some of the flashbacks that slightly affected it. Not completely, but slightly affected it. And also the way they delivered the flashbacks. Moving into episode 3, it returns back to a 7.5 out of 10. And jumping into episode 4, this is where things start to go up a little bit higher within the story rating, and it begins to start to move into an 8 out of 10. Jumping into episode 5, this is the one where I believe Arlong I think makes an appearance, or is it the next episode? One of them. And we get a slight drop once again to a 7.5 out of 10. And a 7.5 out of 10 for the next episode. So, and this had to do with when Arlong came into the picture. You could definitely feel some of the things that held heavy with this character. But do I still stand with my decision in regards to the rating? I certainly do. But moving into the overall rating of the series, we then jump into episode 7, to which gets an 8 out of 10. And it's really nice to see how throughout seeing these episodes, and also how much I enjoyed and also didn't enjoy so much. Then we move into episode 8, which I really did not think that I would give an episode 9. Now, moving into the overall season review, and this is where the main title of the actual thumbnail and what I've got planned for this video is. Now, some things I want to bring up about some of the past in regards to Luffy's character within the story. Now, I understand that there is a difference between the manga time, how he receives the devil fruit, to also the anime as well. I understand it pretty much keeps it the same as the manga, but when they moved this into live action, I do actually enjoy how they sort of like delivered the execution of him having the devil fruit. Now, a comparison between the manga and also the live action. In the manga and also the anime, we see Luffy eating the devil fruit basically in front of the pirates. And one thing is, okay, if he's eating this devil fruit in front of the pirates and Shanks even knows that this is the devil fruit, why don't you have him saying or bringing up something to which, Luffy, don't eat that, that's the devil fruit. But in the way how that part was executed in this particular story, in the live action, I think it was better presented compared to the manga and the anime. And it makes a little bit more sense as the character taking something without knowledge that it's the devil fruit. Not only that, he also eats it in a place to which the pirates are not around him. And I thought the execution of that was actually made sense for the character of Luffy. And it wasn't until afterwards that they realized, Luffy, have you eaten the devil fruit? And that was really well done. And I liked how they did that within the story. Moving into the next thing, we jump into sort of like the past of Zoro's character, and we get to meet some of his past, or something in relation to his past. One thing that sort of came across to me whilst watching it, it almost felt like Zoro was not really like a part of a samurai clan, but almost like a ninja clan, the way it was sort of set out in the story. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It still drives interest as to why he wants to still be the greatest swordsman in the world, and that was really interesting. My only issue is that I had a little bit of a problem with his rival's name. If it could have been abbreviated to something a little bit more easy to understand. And of course, we still get the opportunity of getting the main name in the manga and whatever. I think that would have worked a little bit better for the audience, including myself, because if it's one thing that the Viz Media Shonen Jump app did, is that they allowed all 108 chapters of like the first 12 volumes to be available to read, and I literally had to rush read through all of those chapters, so it leaves a lot to desire for. And I did manage to read through it. I'll give it that. And there were some things that I absolutely enjoyed in the manga, but the fact that I had to rush through it whilst Viz were doing this in this time, I'm only able to get so much information in and soaked in about the actual story set around Luffy and his crew. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy the art, because I actually did enjoy the art, as well as enjoying what I have watched anime-wise in regards to One Piece. With the animation of One Piece, I've been watching through the first season. I'm not fully through it yet. There was an episode of East Blue put up as a bit of a movie type, and it covers the background of all of the characters that you see within the series, and I definitely enjoyed watching that because I felt like I was able to understand what was happening in the world, and also sort of like seeing this world that's in the anime being brought to life through the live action. So when we moved to the character of Usopp, who was next, of course we had Nami following through with us, and we still haven't quite got her backstory. If it's one thing that I would have liked to have seen in regards to Usopp, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who might have this same criticism, is that I would have liked to have seen basically the three little pirates, and his pirate friends, the young pirates that looked up to Usopp in the anime and also the manga and the story. I thought that was great. The fact is, it was actually missing in the live action, and when you look at the anime, you also get a bit of an understanding as to why they like certain parts about Usopp. One likes how Usopp exaggerates a lot of things, and that sort of like becomes his main staple. Like one wants to be like the main exaggerator, one wants to be something else, and the other wants to be something else. That I enjoyed in watching in the anime, but with it missing in the live action, doesn't really take away a lot in some essence, but it would have been nice to see that little bit put in there. Like, even if you brought one of the kids out from that story, I think it would have worked. The next is we also get to see a bit of a backstory in regards to Usopp and what happened with him and his family in the story. And eventually how he ends up meeting up Kai and eventually Kuro. That was really good, and I liked how it was brought across as to how Kuro managed to slip in to a family and basically try to do things to overtake the family business by seeking the death of Kaya. To which eventually we do get to see Kaya wanting Usopp to see the world with Luffy and that. That was really exciting. Another thing that I did like with some of these events were also some of the villains, and I can definitely understand why people like Mihawk. He actually steals the scene when he comes into the scene, but that doesn't take place until we start to meet the character of Sanji, which is the next character that I'm about to cover next. And I haven't really... I've watched the animated stuff around Sanji through the episode of East Blue, that movie that came out on Netflix. Along with that, I enjoyed learning about the character and also learning how he became a part of the crew. But I'll say one thing. The person who basically became a bit of a mentor of Sanji of sorts, I'm going to say it, this guy is sort of like one of the greatest of all time. It's the only way to put it, because what you see in the live action of him like trying to survive X amount of days, I think the main total was about 85 days before they were actually saved. And here he is literally sacrificing food so Sanji could live. And I thought, okay, seeing that we've got this coming across and we're seeing him like surviving on this rock of sorts, lost at sea, and you start to see some of the things that are happening with Sanji, and he really starts to think, oh, maybe he's got more food than what I actually have because of what he's had to survive on. And by the time he goes over to see Ref, I think his name is, forgive me if I've got it wrong, and he learns that he doesn't actually have any food in his bag, and it becomes like a real revelation to him as to, why would you do this for me? It's sort of like something that breaks him out of thinking that Ref would have more food than him, only to learn that the only thing that Ref actually had was gold and silver coins, or basically a small treasure that he had taken from the ship that they had been shipwrecked from. and he let that he let Sanji eat, and that really stood out to me within these episodes. And seeing that, I hope we start to see Sanji maybe in the next season start to do something like that, like in some situations that he might encounter. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. Then after moving on to Sanji, we start to move towards Nami. Now, I think the story event in regards to Nami was a little bit better in the anime and the live action. But that's not to say that the live action also had some really good moments too. Especially when it came to the fight against Arlong. Of course, we had the character of Buggy and what he did. He practically left the scene, and I can understand why even Spencer aka Kabuto, from Bounding into Comics, actually quite liked that adaptation of Buggy, and it was really quite interesting as to see that occur with the character. But we do get to see him again around the end credits of the series. Now, moving into the other characters, or what would, I guess, be somewhat the supporting characters, of course, we have the character of Kobe, which I have no problems at all with the character of Kobe, or the actor who plays Kobe, being who they are. Why? Because if it's one thing Netflix didn't do in this time, they didn't force it down my throat that I had to like such person because they were X or Y in a certain alphabet. No. This character earned their cred in the story. And I mean literally earned their cred in the story, as well as the actor earned their cred in the story. I quite liked their interaction with Luffy, and even how Luffy helped them to become a Marine. Through that, we end up meeting Helmeppo, to which I was constantly forgetting the name of his character as I was writing through my reviews, but I also enjoyed some of the things that he was also able to teach Kobe, until eventually he also got some stuff from Garp, and also we do get a bit of a I guess a cross-gen conversation between the characters. And I thought that also helped set things up to, I guess, give a bit of a better understanding, I guess, to both sides as to why they do what they do and why they stand by their own personal convictions in certain situations. And I thought that was really good. Then we move into some of the other characters, like as not just Arlong, but Kuro and Mihawk. They were absolutely fantastic when they turned up on the scene. And you can definitely see why they were the people that they were. If one sort of like used fear or something else, it was definitely shown to us, the audience, to understand. So I might move on to the next thing, and that is some of the places of the sets that were chosen. And starting off with the tavern, that was sort of used quite a bit. And then we moved to the Barati, which I found was really interesting. I quite liked that set when they moved to basically Sanji's story and what happened there. Then we have the set in relation to Usopp and what happened there. That was quite interesting. I liked how they sort of like covered the lower levels of the place that she lived at, and also some of the events that took place there, and also how the name of the ship, to which Luffy ends up getting in the story, ends up being the name of basically someone who really cared about her. And I like how he took that time and interest to directly to acknowledge her request in regards to it. And in that, you definitely got to see that play out in the story. Now, moving to the big ending, to which we get to see Arlong and eventually the return of Garp and his crew again, along with Helmeppo and Kobe and whatever else what happened there. It was really good to see sort of like a bit of investigation happening in regards to some of the corrupt activity that was happening in those particular islands. I think it was called the Kokami Islands, around the area of the Cocoa Village. And along with that, we get to see Nezumi, who is sort of like one of the corrupt within that region, and also playing his part in sort of like working along Arlong to also make sure certain goals are met, especially by Arlong against the character of Nami. So basically working it against her. And of course, you get to see this character work out of her way just to reclaim the village of Cocoa, or reclaim the Cocoa Village. And that was absolutely amazing, of how you sort of like saw something that she had a dream for to get done, only to go out of her way and ask for help from Luffy in the last couple of chapters, or the last couple of episodes. And she realized that she can't do what she can do on her own. She does need help. And of course, it does lead to a bit of a reunion, not only with the village, but also with her sister. And that was really nice too, as to how that was delivered. We get a bit of an encounter with Garp and also Luffy, to which they have a bit of a big biff, or a little bit of a fight, to which is basically used to test Luffy's resolve in the situation, as to will he stick to his own convictions or will he actually falter. To which he does learn that he will stick to his convictions of wanting to be the king of the pirates. He then leaves the village, but he also goes after Arlong, learning that it wasn't Luffy who was responsible for what happened at the village, but it was Arlong, and they start to target those pirates. And I thought that was a really nice little surprise ending there. We start to move towards the very end of the story, and we basically get a reunion of many of the characters that we sort of see in the previous episodes. From encountering Sanji, Shanks, who we see at the beginning, and his connection to Luffy, Mihawk, and a number of other characters, Arlong, Buggy, even Alvida. I must admit, the character that, the actress that they chose for Alvida, I must admit, she is actually quite pretty. And I mean it, she is quite pretty. And I'm really surprised that they chose her for a choice, but you know what? Good on them, because she executed her role really well. So, finally starting to move into my overall review of the series, I'll say one thing. With this series, it has solidified my choice in picking up the first box set manga of One Piece. That's right. It has solidified my choice in picking up the box set, the first box set manga of One Piece by Oda, or Ichiro Oda. And I really like how the story was brought across. I also liked how that they also respected sort of like the gender of the characters and everything else. Fantastic job in keeping it as close to the source material as possible, and I really hope that continues into the next season. I would highly recommend anyone to check this season out. I'm even thinking of maybe watching it again a second time, because as I have done this, or as I do this review, I have only seen the One Piece live action once through, so I'm planning on going through a second watching. So jumping into the rating of the whole season. Well, seeing that the last episode ended with a 9, I'm willing to give this whole season, along with the main characters, for the main characters, I give an 8.5 out of 10. For the supporting characters, 8.5 out of 10. The soundtrack, this thing was absolutely consistent throughout the series as to how good the soundtrack was. So for that, I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. That's right. The soundtrack alone for the whole season, a 9 out of 10. And for the story overall, even though it didn't get a 9 to the end, it will get a 8.5 out of 10 from me. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day. Please share what were your favourite moments, and would you also like me to do another video after this, maybe covering some of my favourite characters that I enjoyed within the live action? Or maybe something else, or my top 3 characters in the series that I enjoyed, top 3 villains that I enjoyed, something like that. Please let me know. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.